Hello everybody, it's Heath Robinson back again with Topaz to present another exciting webinar with Rad Drew. This one's crafting images in the digital darkroom with Topaz Labs tools. Raddy there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's been about 2 months. We're super excited to have you back.
Well, it's great to be back again. It's been a while, and I'm really excited to share some new things. Um, I want to start today. I've always done infrared workflows, and I've had a lot of people ask for some for that this time around, and I'm going to start with that today and kind of move through it very quickly. And I just want to start by saying that I recently purchased a new camera. It's a Fuji X-T1, had it converted by Spencer's Camera. It's different than the point and shoot that I had been using for 2 years prior, which was a Lumix. And I've set it up a little bit differently in terms of I set the custom white balance in that camera and so on. Some things that if you're shooting infrared, I'd encourage you to look into and understand. With Heath's help and some other friends' help, I've worked out a new workflow for processing infrared images. It's a little bit more complex than what I had done in the past, but I like the results that I'm getting. You might want to have a piece of paper and pencil handy to jot down some numbers that I'm going to throw at you. You can always look at this again later, though, and review if you need to. So without any further ado, I'm just going to jump right in here. Just a quick around the screen here. I know some of you are new to Topaz Studio. What we're looking at is the Topaz Studio photo editor interface. All of the adjustments and effects from Topaz, almost all of them, run through Topaz Studio. Topaz Studio itself can serve as a plugin to Photoshop, Lightroom, and I believe Elements as well. And so you can still run the adjustments that you purchase, but you have to run them through Topaz Studio, which is a free downloadable photo editor. So just keep that in mind. Over on the left here are all of the effects and presets that are available that provide preset looks based on the adjustments that we put in over on the right side. Over here on the right is where we'll find the different adjustments. I'm going to click on this little blue box here. Everything above this line right here from vignette up, these adjustments are all part of the free download with Topaz Studio. The things that you see below here are all of the adjustments that you can purchase either a la carte or as part of a package with Topaz. You may see these in your list, but if they are black instead of blue here, you'll click on them and you'll notice that it'll tell you that you need the Pro version. So you can apply these from adjustments or effects on the left, but if you don't own the adjustment, you can't make any changes to that. So you can't do any tweaking. So just a couple of little things there. Across the top, we have the tools for zooming in and out, for resetting to the screen. You can split your screen so that you can see the before and after in a variety of ways. And then down here in the bottom is our tray where the images will go as we're working on them. And then also part of the studio, you have a crop tool, a healing tool, lens correction, which will work for most major cameras today. It's already set up to run. You can also do masking at this level, and then you can do some things like rotating and flipping and so forth with the image. Okay, so with all that said, let's go ahead and jump right into this infrared image that we're looking at. This is palm trees in a grove on Molokai, one of the Hawaiian islands. I was just there a couple weeks ago for a fantastic workshop with Jack Davis. This is a Fuji X-T1 image, and the first thing that I'm going to do with this is run AI Clear. AI Clear is Topaz sort of new tool. It came out over the summer. For reducing noise in images, and I just clicked on it, and you can see it's the blue line up here indicates that it's running. It just jumps right in and runs. The default is auto, and the sharpness is low. You can select any of these settings. The auto does a nice job of detecting what your image needs, but you can always override that by choosing one of these other layers. On this one, I'm not going to do that. If you've done noise reduction with other software, you know sometimes things get kind of smoothed out. That doesn't happen so much with AI Clear, but if it does, you have a recover details tool here that lets you bring back some of the detail that you might be smoothing out. But again, it does such a nice job, I rarely see that. So I'm going to go ahead and just close this up. The next thing I'm going to do here is apply that AI Clear adjustment by clicking this little apply button here. And what that's going to do is create another image here for us to work in. And you notice AI Clear doesn't show up here anymore. It's in this image, but it doesn't show up in our adjustments list. If I go back to this original, you can see there's our AI Clear adjustment. The reason that we do that is because if you leave that AI Clear adjustment and start adding other adjustments, every time you resize the image or do something, AI Clear calculates again. So it just slows things down. So it's best to just do a apply on the image and start fresh and start adding your other things. One other little tip that I was so grateful to learn from Heath a while back, when you apply, like this image right here, if I clicked apply, it automatically created a new image and selected it for me. But you have to set it up in preferences to do that. If you go up to Topaz Studio and preferences, you'll notice there's a little checkbox here, switch to the new image after you apply. What that's going to do is make sure that when you apply the changes on this image, it's going to create the new image and select it for you. The reason that's important is because a lot of times I would apply the new image, but it was still selected on the old image, and I would start editing in the old image. So it's just a little tip I've found very useful, so I want to pass it on. So what I'm going to do now, I have actually already processed this image, and I have created a preset, and I am going to go over here, Drew Photography. I'm just going to type in what I want. And there it is. And you notice I've got an effect here called Rad Drew Effect 2 after AI Clear. That's just my naming convention, so I would know what I was looking at. When I click on this effect, watch what happens over here in the adjustments column. It has populated the adjustment column with all of the different adjustments that I made to create this look. So what I've done is make a shortcut to, I can put any infrared image in here and apply this effect to it, and then I can go through each of these items and tweak it a little bit. So just to show you what I've done here, I'm going to close these little eyeballs. See how I'm clicking on the eyeball there? I'm closing each of those adjustment layers. So right now, this is the image that comes out right after our AI Clear was applied. The very first thing that I'm going to do is come up here and add a basic adjustment. So I would go into my adjustments tool here and I would select a basic adjustment. I've already done that, so it's here. And then I'm going to go down and just let's look at what I did in this adjustment. We bumped the clarity up here a little bit, and I say we because I worked with Heath yesterday, and we kind of came about with this particular workflow. So clarity got bumped a little bit, and then we also took the saturation up just a little, and that's really all. The other thing that you could do now, this image or this stack of adjustments over here may have actually been done on another image. And one of the things that I would do here is come in and maybe play with my black level and white level. So I can take my black level down. What I'm looking to do is bring it down to the point where it's starting to clip on the left. And I don't want to crush my blacks, but I want to get them as black as I can. And then on the white level, I'm already kind of over there on the right side. So our whites are over here, and you can see the histogram starting to clip a little bit. So I'm not going to move that too far. But now there's our image. So there's before and there's after, just with a basic adjustment. The next thing I'm going to do is go to a adjustment called channel mixer. And channel mixer, this is where you might want your paper and pencil for a second, because this is a little bit more complicated than any of the other processes that I've done, and I had to take a lot of notes when I was doing it. This allows you to set up a red, green, and blue channel, each that contains red, green, and blue within it. So I'm going to click on the red channel, and if you notice down here, my settings for, I've got red at 0, green at 0, and blue at 1. Then when I go to the green channel, I'm going to click on the green channel, and I've got red at 0, green at 0, and blue at 1. And then finally, in the blue channel, I've got red at 1, green at 1, and blue at -1. Now, these aren't magic numbers, and your image is going to be a little different, but you can play with these different channels. And what we're doing is trying to get this contrast between the sky and the palms in a way that really separates and pops the image a little bit. So you may have to do some adjustments that are different than these numbers, but for your image. But you can play around and see what looks good for you. The next thing that I did here was an HSL color tuning. HSL color tuning lets us tweak the hue, saturation, and lightness of the overall image, or you can go into individual colors. For this, I didn't need to go into individual colors at all, but we did tweak down our hue just a little bit to about 22 or so. And you can see if I slide this around, I'm trying to get that right about there where it's sort of blue. And I'm not sure I fully understand all this, but it has to do with the way our eyes see this light, and it helps to get it in that range. You don't really need to do anything else with color sensitivity or other saturation, so I'm going to go ahead and close that up. And then the next one, this is another new tool that I haven't talked about before, and this is tone curves. Again, here you could work with a red, green, or blue channel independently, but we're going to work with this one that covers all three. And you notice that the red line is your corner-to-corner baseline. What I did was drop, and it's just like your histogram, your blacks are over here and your whites are over here. So I brought the whites up just a little bit, maybe about 30% above this line here, and I brought the darks down about 25% under this. And that, again, you can see, let me go back to without this, you can see how it really pops the contrast between the trees and the sky in the background. The next thing is to use the black and white adjustment. Black and white adjustment, then, we came down and began to adjust our yellow, green, aqua, and blue. Those are the only 4 colors that we adjusted in here. And you can see we kind of dropped the yellow down about 0.25, 0.6 here, and then up to about 0.7 and down to about 0.19 or 20. So again, these aren't magic numbers. You'll want to play with those and see, but you're looking for that contrast that you're getting there. And then finally, the last thing was a brightness and contrast adjustment. And look what happens when that gets adjusted. We've now got really nice blacks in the sky, and our trees are really popping in this IR image. The only thing that we did in this is this contrast adjustment right here. You can see it's only up a little bit. Now, I might want to have those darks a little darker, in which case I could take this and tweak it a very, very tiny bit. And a little bit of contrast goes a really long way. So you kind of got to be careful with that. But like there's at 1.31. If I take it all the way up, you can see it just goes too much. But if we're right in here about right there, that's the look that I'm going for. And that's it. You can be done at this point. Now there's one more thing that I like to do. And again, this is just my artistic statement. You know, if you want to have artistic license, this is your stuff. You get to do what you want. What I like to do is go up here and grab a radiance adjustment, and I like to give my infrared just a slight glow. To do that, I come in here to the strength of my radiance, and I'm just going to put my cursor in that cell. And if I use my arrow keys on the keyboard, I can go up one increment at a time. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and that's about enough. If I go up to 4, 5, or 6, you can see we're starting to get into some really fantastical kind of looks. Now that may apply to some things you want, but for what I'm doing with this image, I just want a hint of that. And so here's without the radiance, and there's with the radiance. It's just a little subtle touch that I really like. So let's just grab one more image here. Let's see. Let's grab this one. This is another image of some of the lush growth on Molokai a couple weeks ago, palms and all kinds of other really beautiful, lush plant life. So here we go. Again, the very first thing I'm going to do with this image is run AI clear. This has actually become probably the first step in every image I do, whether it's infrared or other. So we're going to run that, and it's done already. And I'm going to go ahead and just leave it the way it is. There isn't a lot of noise in this image, and I'm happy with that. I'm just going to leave it, and I'm going to apply. And now I'm going to start with this image, and I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to get that same RDP, and I want that IR effect after AI clear. So I'm going to apply that, and again here, it's applied all of those adjustments that we just made, and I'm happy with that. Now you could go in just like we did before into each of these levels and tweak things just slightly, maybe to bring out a little more darkness in this tree trunk, or blacken the sky a little bit, but you don't really need to. I'm going to leave this one just as it is and call it done. If I wanted to, I could take my signature over here, drag it into the column as a image layer, size it, position it where I want it to be, and I'm done. So that's the new IR workflow that I'm working on. I'm sure you're going to see it evolve over time as I learn more, and but it's really been a fun process, and I think the results have been really, really good. So good luck with that, and let's go ahead and close out some of these, and we'll go to the next part of what I want to cover today. So the next thing that I want to look at, these are also from Molokai. One of the fun things we got to do while we were there was photograph hula dancers, and it was really magical. These young women and their teachers embody the spirit of Hawaii in a way that I didn't know was there. I mean, it's just really wonderful, and they're preserving this culture and this art of hula, and it's so nice to see these young girls embracing it and doing it. So this is one of the dancers holding a lei. She's standing in the ocean. They've been dancing for us, and I just love the look on her face and the way that I was able to make this image. First thing I noticed when I look at it is that there are some blemishes and things like that in the image that we want to clean up. So I would go down to our healing brush that's part of the Topaz Studio, and we can come in here and start cleaning those things up. It's very simple to do. You've done this with other tools like it. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I don't want to take up our time, but I have another image. I'm going to drag it in, and this is the healed image. And on this image, I have run AI clear, and I have gone in and cleaned up the complexion issues that were there. And that's where we are now. So the next thing I want to do, once again, I processed this already, and I added a hula effect, which I called hula. And I want the one that's hula after AI clear. So AI clear has been applied. I'm going to choose this one after AI clear, and there's our final image now. And if we back this up again, we can go back through these, turn these off. This is where I started. I added a basic adjustment. I set my black and white points here. increase the exposure just a little bit, and that was it in the basic adjustment. And then I ran dehaze. And again, dehaze, you can use the sliders independently down here, but I love using these presets. Topaz has done a great job of creating presets that cover a wide spectrum. And I chose for this one, you have a heavy dehaze, a medium dehaze, and a light dehaze. And for this one, I chose the medium. It just seemed to give a nice tone to things and work. So you can always come down and tweak these after the fact, but the presets are a great way to get started and then work from there. Precision detail was the next thing I applied here. And once again, precision detail lets you work with the overall details in the image, the shadow details only, or the highlight details only. It also has these incredible presets. So if I look at the presets up here, there's one, as I mouse over them, it applies them to the image. So there's balanced detail. I like it, but look at how harsh her skin is now. It's brought back a lot of the shadows and things on her skin that I don't like. If I go to shadow detail, below that, it's done the same thing. It's a nice tone, but it's not smooth enough for me. It's showing me too much of that detail in her skin that I don't want to see. If I go to highlight detail, though, look at that. It's really smoothed things out in a way that still leaves her natural skin texture there, but hides some of those other flaws that we don't want to see. So I selected highlight detail. You can tell that if you come down here and look at highlight, you can see it's just a very small couple of adjustments here that got to that point. You can still go in and tweak those if you want, if you see something that you want to adjust. But I like the preset just fine, and I'm not going to do anything with it. For my final step here, I added radiance again. And you notice how it just really gives it a softness. And I really felt this was a really magical experience, and I wanted to share that in the image. And to do that, once again, I went into strength, put my cursor in here, and I just went up to 0.03. It didn't take much just to give a little bit of glow. So here's without that radiance, and there's with it. And again, that's a personal preference, something you might want to try. One last thing here that I might do with this image is go in and add a basic adjustment. Let's see, do I want to do a basic adjustment or do I want to do a brightness? Let me see here. Let's do brightness. So what I want to do, I love the way these flowers in the lay here look, but this flower up here is looking a little dark to me. So I'm going to come in here with my brightness, and I'm going to brighten things up a little bit. And I might even do just a little bit of contrast, not much. And I don't care what's happening to the rest of the image, because all I really care about is that flower by her ear. So I'm kind of watching that. So now I want to bring the highlights out in that flower and brighten it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go to the masking tool. This little box with a plus sign in it is the masking tool, and you can mask in every adjustment in Topaz. It's just very cool. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the plus sign. I'm going to invert my mask, select my brush, and then I'm going to up the mask transparency, because what I'm going to do is go in here and paint in that brightness just to this flower, that brightness contrast adjustment. Look at that. So now you notice too, you can change the radius of your brush, and then softness, you can also decide how much softness you want on that edge. And you see the green circle around the red circle. That's something down here called edge aware. You want that turned on, because what it's doing is sensing where the edge of that flower is. And even though I might, as long as you keep the edge between the red and the green, it doesn't lighten her face or the background, it'll just the flower. So now if we go back and look at this, let's turn it off. Watch this flower up here. There's before and there's after. So we've just given it a little bit of a pop. And that's it. That's all I want to do to that image. I'm going to go ahead and, again, I can drag my signature over if I want and size it and position it, and I'm done.
Hey, Rad.
Yeah.
We're getting lots of questions about that signature. Do you want to go ahead and cover that a little bit? How you had that made and what it is?
Sure. Yeah. The signature that I'm using is made by a company called Photo Logo, and they will do a signature for you. This is not my signature per se. It's one that they prepared for me and I selected because I liked it. You tell them what you want in it, and they will create it for you. It's a transparency file. They will provide you with black and white in high and low res, and you can use them on desktop tools like this. You can put them on your iPhone and use them as transparencies to add your signature to iPhone's images also. I'm actually an affiliate rep for them, and when we send an email message out later, I'll make sure Heath gives you the code. You get a little bit of a discount, I think, and it's just a nice way to put your signature on your images. I really just like having it there. It lets people know that, you know, it's your image. It's not going to protect your image from being stolen by somebody, because anybody can go out and take this out with software. It's not going to do that, but it's just a way of letting people know that it's your image. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Let's go ahead and grab one more image here and just talk about how this works again. This is an image. This woman here is actually the teacher of these young women. She's been teaching hula for a long time, and just another beautiful woman. And we had an opportunity to photograph her along the beach. And once again, the very first thing I'm going to do here is apply AI Clear. And I'm going to split the screen here and kind of enlarge this because I want you to see what this does. We're going to go down here to AI Clear. And again, it automatically runs the default, which is auto and low sharpening. I'm just going to bump it all the way up here just to see what we get. And you just change it, and there's no go button or anything. It just starts running. And it's taking a second. And it's almost done. And now here's if we move this line, there's before and there's after. You notice it's just smoothed out some of her skin, but it's left the texture of her beautiful skin there. It hasn't flattened it out and made it a cartoon, but it's really, really smoothed it out nicely in a beautiful way. I just love how AI Clear does that. I'm going to go ahead and apply that change to this image. And then once again, I'm going to go over here and grab my hula effect. That's the one I want, and it populates with all of these things right here. Again, I could go through and tweak each of these if I needed to, but it looks pretty darn good. The one thing I do want to do, I would like to make the lay really pop a little bit. So I'm going to add a basic adjustment, and I'm going to increase the saturation. Now I'm increasing it all over the image, but I only care about this part right here. And I might even warm it up just a little bit, but I don't care about the rest of this because we're going to use the masking tool again. So I'm going to go up here to the little plus mark, the masking icon. Once again, I'm going to invert my mask so it's black, choose my brush. I'm going to set the transparency to 1, and now I'm going to come in here, and if I needed to, I could adjust my brush right here. I could adjust my softness. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to paint in that saturation and warmness into this lay. And again, with that edge aware on, I'm able to get right up to the edge, and look at that. See how I brought that out? Now I can come over here and do the same thing on this side, and it's really quite remarkable what happens. Now let's go ahead and close that up. Let's say now I'm looking at that. Notice all of this up here, there's no oversaturation in this part. It only applied it down here. But let's say I'm looking at that and I'm like, you know, I want that more saturated. Well, I can come down here in that same adjustment that we masked. I can increase the saturation a little bit. I can increase the temperature. I'm just going to overdo it so you can see, but look how it's isolating those areas that we masked. And you can play with that and tweak it until you get it just exactly the way you want. I'm going to stop right there. That's very cool. And again, we could put our signature in and all of that. I'm going to go ahead and close out of these. And back out. The next thing that I want to share with you, this is another great workshop I did this fall with my friend John Barclay on Cape Cod. And this image was taken on what they call the tidal flats. So basically, when the tide goes out, it leaves a sandy area that you can walk out on for miles beyond the coastline, the shoreline. So here's the shoreline back here, and we walked all the way out here. And you can see that these ripples of sand are left behind. The ocean is somewhere behind me. But it's just really a fun thing to photograph. And as I look at this, the very first thing I notice is that it appears the horizon is a little bit off. So I'm going to go to my crop tool. I'm going to just kind of click on that center. If you click on it, I believe it will level for you. Hold on a second. Well, drat it all. There we go. See, just one little quick click and it leveled it. And I'll say done. And there's my image leveled. The next thing I'm going to do with this, once again, is run AI clear. And I'm going to kind of zoom in here and split the screen a little so we can see before and after. And again, I'm going to take this up to high. And takes a second to run. And there's before and there's after. I don't know if you can see, I can see on my screen here, it's just really left detail, but really given a lot of kind of creamed up those skies without taking out the detail that's so important. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. And then once again, I already have created an effect over here called Tidal. And here it is, Tidal Flats 2. I'll select that. And there's my image. Here's where we started. And here's where it is now with these adjustments. Now, if I back out of these again, just show you what I did. So here's the first one. This is a basic adjustment. And once again, I set my black and white points. So what you're doing is sliding your black slider all the way over until you see the histogram starting to climb up the edge there. It's starting to clip, they call it. So I'm going to do that with the black on the left side, but I want to stop before it starts to climb up the wall here. On the white, the same thing. I'm going to go over to the other side, and this one's a little different. I'm just going to kind of watch where it is, and I'm going to stop somewhere in there. I did tweak the saturation just a tiny bit, and I warmed it up just a little bit, just to bring out these grasses a little more. And that's it on my basic adjustment. Next, I did a dehaze again. Again, for this one, I believe I chose the heavy dehaze. I like what it did to the tone and the sky and the overall color. And then I added precision contrast. And again, this is the one where I don't typically use the presets on this, but I went in and adjusted each of these myself to really bring out the contrast throughout that image. And then also, one thing you have, when you make these contrast adjustments, sometimes you end up affecting your histogram here, and you may be blowing out areas or crushing black. So you have these tools down here that allow you to change your midtones a little bit and kind of recover any blown out whites or any darks that get crushed. Go ahead and close that. The next thing I did was a precision detail. And let me see here. What did I do on this one? Again, I know I used these presets. I believe I went to balanced detail. Here's highlight detail, which is going to be affecting more of the brighter areas. And here's shadow detail. You might choose a different one than I did, but I liked this balanced detail. And again, you don't have to use the preset. You can go into these and make these adjustments independent on your own, but I like starting there and then tweaking. Again, you have the option down here to correct any problems that you have with blowing out highlights or crushing blacks by using your black point and white point sliders or your highlight sliders under lighting. Let's see. And then the last thing I did again was color tuning. This is really one of the most powerful tools in Topaz, I think. It allowed me to select these colors. You know, this grass down in the foreground and the yellow in the grass, I wanted to really bring that out. This was a really bright sun coming in from behind us and illuminating this, and I really wanted to pop it. So I chose the orange. I increased the saturation of the orange just a little bit and the lightness just a little bit. Then I went to the yellow. And by the way, when I mouse over the color, I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but it gives you hash marks. Let's see if that's better. You see the little hash marks on the screen where yellow is playing in the image. So it's a really nice way to see how that's working. And then you can adjust that brightness and saturation to your heart's content. That's essentially it. Again, you can drag your signature over there, size it, and put it where you want. This is just an image layer. Let's see. Oh, you know what I haven't shown you or didn't talk about? You know, I've been talking about using these presets that I've made. Well, you can do those anytime. Let me take this out of here. Anytime you create a look with the adjustments over here and you want to save that as an effect that you can apply to other images, you would go down here to this little stack where it says Save Effect if you mouse over it, and you click on that, and it brings up this dialog box, and you can type in the name of your effect. You name it something that makes sense to you, and then you can even write in a description. You know, it's a basic adjustment with dehaze or whatever you want to put in there. Or put in, you know, it's what I use for the Tidal Flats or whatever. You can click on different tags that help you find it when you're searching over here and say okay, and you've got your image. The other thing that you can do, although right now I understand he said they're working on it, they've disabled this, you have the option of saying no to public display of your effect. When it's working, you can say yes, and your effect will be visible to everyone. And right now, it's being redone, so it's not working. But so for right now, you just leave it on no, and say okay. And then when you go to look for your effect, you can type in its name, and it'll show up over here in this panel. Okay, back out of that. And let's see. Let's do one other thing here. I wanted to talk a little bit about AI Gigapixel. Those of you who have heard me talk about it before, AI Gigapixel came out this summer. It is the Topaz tool that allows you to enlarge images. So when would you ever want to use this? Well, it's great if you have, say, maybe an image that was taken with an old camera. This is what it looks like when you open up AI Gigapixel. So if maybe you have an image from an old camera from several years ago that had a smaller sensor and the image is just not as high res and large file. Maybe you have a mobile image that you've taken with an iPhone or mobile phone and you want to print that large, but it's not got enough integrity to do that. Maybe you want to capture a frame from a video. I've been shooting 4K video on my iPhone, taking single frames out and running them through AI Gigapixel, and I can print them really large. So let me just do a really quick example here. This image right here, I'm going to drag it over and drop it right in the interface. This is what it looks like. This image is an iPhone image shot with the XS Max iPhone, and I want to be able to print it really big. And so when you load it into AI Gigapixel, your enlargement options are over here on the right. You can either enlarge by scale, by percent, or by size. If you choose size, you can determine the width and height in pixels, inches, or centimeters. I usually stay with scale, and I'm going to do this one to 400%. You can save your file out as a JPEG, a TIFF, or a PNG, whichever you choose. I'm going to do JPEG because it's a little quicker for the demo. You can choose different different qualities. I always choose maximum. And then a color profile if you wish. I'm just going to match the input that's going in. Down below here, you notice this little check mark right here, save to input file location. What that means is a lot of times people say, well, I did this, but where'd my file go? Well, I have a folder on my desktop that I pulled this image out of, and when it saves this image back, it's going to put it back in that same folder because I have this checked. You can also uncheck that and put it where you want, but in a different location. But I like to put it back right where next to the one that was in the folder where it was. The other thing I like to do is put a little suffix to the file name here, and I'll put underscore 400. Whoops. 400, and that way I know, I'm reminded that this was done at 400%. Down below, I'm using the GPU. I have a computer that has the computing power to do this. You'll want to look at the site, the Topaz site, and look at their specifications for this. It does take a little more computing power. If you're on the edge, choose CPU instead of GPU, and it may do a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and click start, and it's going to process this. Now, we're not going to wait for this to happen. It'll take maybe a minute or two, bringing it up to 400 or even 600%. But this is what it looks like. It takes a minute to run. Depending on your machine, it'll take more or less time. And what happens then, I'm going to go ahead and hide this, and I'm going to pull up and just show you the difference. So Photoshop's popped up here. There's our 400. And there's our, should be a, you know what, here, let me turn this off. It's still taking up power here. I'm going to cancel that. And close that. So here are three files. Here is the original file. That is the original iPhone file. And if I look at the image size of that file, you can see that it's not a bad size for an iPhone, 2200 by 2800, which means I could print it about 31 by 39, which isn't bad. But if I look at the one that's 400%, and I look at my image size, we are now up to 9,068 by 11,000 pixels, and we're printing at 125 by 157. That's at 400%. If we go to the 600, excuse me, the 600% and look at our size, we now are up to 13,000 by 17,000 pixels and printing at 188 by 236 inches. So we're talking about really increasing the size of these, and I have printed side-by-side comparisons here, and often the one at 400 or 600% looks better than the original iPhone output printed at the smaller size that iPhone image will allow. It cleans things up as it's doing this enlargement. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. What I'd suggest on this, read the specs on what your computer needs to have, and you can always download this and use it for 30 days and decide if it's something that is good for you, or it works on your machine or not. Last thing I want to look at, I want to show you these waves. This is some of the most fun photography I have ever done. We photographed crashing waves on Molokai at Papahaku Beach. And to do this, I was using my Fuji X-T2, and hand holding a 100 to 400 millimeter lens. That's shooting with a 400 millimeter lens is pretty tricky because you really have a hard time getting everything to not be blurry. The way I achieved that was to shoot at a very high ISO. Well, a high ISO means noise, right? Well, watch this. If we look at this image, you can see we've got kind of Christmas tree lights going on and like color noise in it. I am going to start by running AI clear and just watch this. It's truly remarkable. So here's before. Let me zoom in a little bit. Here's before and here's after. Look at all the color noise that we have in there, the Christmas tree lights going on. Here's without. And that's at the auto and the low setting. We could increase that even more. I don't want to because I don't feel the need. I still have nice detail in these waves. They're not cartoonish, but they've gotten rid of all of this noise. It's just a really remarkable improvement. So I'm going to go ahead and close that up. I am going to apply that. And then once again, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to waves. And where are you? Let's see. Here we go. So I'm going to click on this. And again, I processed this already and I made an effect. There is my final image. There's where I started. And there's the final image. Now, again, I could go through each of these and tweak it a little bit. I could change the contrast a little bit. I could bring out more detail in the shadows. There's a zillion things I could do if I wanted to, but I really like what I've got right there. And I'm going to stop. That's going to be my final image. I'm going to go ahead and add my signature to it and call it a day. Because I've done this preset, I could go over here and grab even another image. Let's see. Try and find one of these that's really cool. Here's another one. Drop this on here. And then once again, I'm going to start with AI clear. Actually, I noticed that I've got AI clear in this workflow. So instead of running AI clear in the beginning, oh, and see, I've got a spot on this. So I'm going to use my healing brush and go in here and remove that spot. And then I'm going to go up here and apply this one. And it's going to throw AI clear into the mix here. And there's our final result. Again, how quick that is. I've already done the process. Now I could go through and tweak this if I wanted to, or add additional adjustments if I wanted to, or so on. But it's just amazing. I've really had fun processing these waves, and I'm just really glad to get to share this with you. Heath, I'm aware that it's about 8 minutes till 6. Do we want to take some questions, or?
Yeah, I know every time you show your infrared workflow, we always get the question, people ask what infrared filter you're using or how you got that image. Could you go over that a little bit? I know you've got something special there.
Yes. What the cameras that I have used for infrared, they don't involve filters. It actually is, you send your camera in to a place. I use Spencer's camera in Colorado, and they actually replace the sensor in the camera. And then once a camera is dedicated to infrared, it's only good for infrared. You can't use it for other types of photography. The exception to that is there is a new technology today called full spectrum. Full spectrum also does a replacement of the sensor, but then you can use that camera by changing filters on the lens. And you can shoot straight infrared, you can shoot regular color, you can shoot black and white, you can even do astrophotography, all by changing a filter on the lens. That's not what I have. I just have a camera that has been converted to infrared. There are several companies out there that do it that are reputable. The one I've chosen has been Spencer's camera, and they do a great job. Does that cover the questions you're getting?
Yeah,
Heath?
thank you. And I'll actually, you've got some information about Spencer's camera that I'll include in the follow-up email as well. Guys, if you want to follow Rad, you can visit him at his website. That's raddrewphotography.com. You can also follow him on Facebook at facebook.com/raddrewphotography. Check out his website. Join his mailing list. He always sends out great information, and he's updating people about his workshops. I still haven't got to go on one, Rad. I'm a little jealous. I really want to go on that Cuba workshop. If they ever let me out of this webinar room, I'll try and join you.
Well, we'll have to remedy that, Heath.
Yeah. And if you have any questions we weren't able to get to, I'm going to send the questions to Rad so he can follow up on some of those. But you can always contact us at webinars@topazlabs.com. Guys, thank you for spending an hour with us. Rad, thank you for taking so much time out of your schedule to prep for this and to present with us. It's always a pleasure having you. I can't wait to
Thank you. My pleasure. Yeah.
Guys, thanks for joining us very much. Rad, thank you again. And hope to see you on a future webinar.
Thanks, Heath. Happy holidays, everyone.